And a long trial. Let me bring back in our guest with us, law professor Jeff Lax. And Jeff, what I wanted to ask you was yesterday there was an incident yesterday involving facial or signals being given to the daughter while she was on the stand. Both the mother was accused of doing it, the father was accused of doing it. He was actually accused of doing it twice. And I want to get your opinion because at the end of the day, when the second accusation came that he was scowling and even mouthing words to her on the stand, the judge said he didn't see it. And I guess the law in Wisconsin says that if the judge doesn't see it, he can't take other information. It was the law clerk that gave him that information. But he did say if the prosecutor's office wants to, they could bring charges against him for violating a court order from earlier facial expressions. I want to get your thoughts on how he handled that and whether that's something that a prosecutor's office may even consider.
Now, I'm a New York lawyer, but I do my homework, guys, and I looked up the law in the state. It's Rule 940.42, which is witness intimidation. And the letter of the law is, whoever knowingly and maliciously prevents or dissuades, or who attempts to so prevent or dissuade any witness from attending or giving testimony at any trial is a misdemeanor, but if you're accused of a felony, it becomes a felony in and of itself. Now, when he went like that to his daughter, to me, that is the definition of what that means, because she was testifying against him compellingly. So to me, that is the definition of what that statute says. I agree, and I was very disturbed by it. I was extremely disturbed. I understand what you're saying. The judge has to have observed it himself, but I was very disappointed at the casual approach this judge took on that issue, because I thought that was completely outrageous what he did and should have been reprimanded much more strongly.
And Jeff, my point, the outrageous, because it was to his own 14-year-old daughter who has been through it, no doubt, in the scenario of her life. But to watch him do that absolutely got my blood boiling. But I have to ask you this about it as well. Okay, so I agree with you. If that's the law and you've done your research and it looks like, yeah, he absolutely.
Spoken like a true professor,
yes,
by the way.
Yes, it was excellent. I know, right? I'm like, we love Jeff. This is great. So, and yes, he did it. But, I mean, come on. He's charged with murder and 3 other counts. Does he care? Does he care if it's a misdemeanor that he's actually facing? I think he doesn't care if he's going to be charged with a misdemeanor. What do you think, Michael?
Well, what I think is, what I would care about if I were him is just like Jeff's response to it. What about the juror's response to it?
Well, yeah, that.
You know, as we talk, they see everything these guys do, and they see him doing that to his daughter. What do you think their response to it was? You had a very visceral response to it. So I'd be worried, and I guess he's not even thinking along those planes, because this goes back to her testimony, Judge, where she said, I was groomed by him to do things. That was probably something he would normally do, right?
Yeah,
as part of his grooming. He's
probably
comfortable in that space.
Probably true.
Jeff, love to get your thoughts.
Yeah, you know, when the judge asked the legal analyst in the last hour, I was dying for that question. Do you think that he's going to testify? Because when I saw him purse his lips and hold them, I said, this is not a good witness. This is someone who can't control himself. This is someone who's a total wild card. This is someone who doesn't even know how horrible he looks. Like the judge said, to a 14-year-old girl who is traumatized by this whole thing and has her own lawyer. Not just an advocate, she's got her own lawyer in this case. To do that to her in front of this jury, I agree with both of you. That doesn't come off well for himself and to the jury for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. And just a reminder that attorney was appointed after all these shenanigans. After that, I think the judge was smart. Yes, and I think the judge was smart to do that.
No question.
All right, we want to pivot while we have you, Jeff, because of course jury selection beginning tomorrow in a very high-profile trial out of Utah. Now, this is the case involving the actress Gwyneth Paltrow. Court TV will bring you this trial live, starting with the opening statements, which are set for next week.
Yep, Salt Lake City resident Terry Sanderson accuses Paltrow of crashing into him while skiing on the slopes. Sanderson is suing for $3.1 million in damages. He says the ski collision left him with a brain injury and 4 broken ribs.
And of course, we know the actress is countersuing. She claims Sanders was the one that skied into her. And a reminder, she's suing for $1. plus attorney's fees. And I'm sure that's probably a pretty hefty bill, Michael.
It is. But tell our viewers why people sue for $1, what point they're making when they do that.
Oh, I was in the right, you were in the wrong. You want to sue me saying I did it? You did it.
They're making
Civil
a point.
case, they are making a point. Civil case about money, no criminal charges in this case. Jeff, let's just get your immediate initial reaction. And do you think it's going to settle on the courthouse steps, which I think it might?
It might, and I got to tell you, my initial reaction to this, honestly, is that if anybody's following this kind of a trial, they have to be watching Court TV. And the reason I say that is I was watching your coverage a couple of days ago, and you guys had an expert attorney in ski accidents. I didn't even know that existed. I couldn't believe it. I'm watching this, and you have an expert ski accident attorney. And they had just an unbelievable conversation, which I had no idea about this, but it's almost like a car accident where if someone's in front, they're assumed to be innocent if you kind of rear end them. Because the thought is the other way around. The person in the back is held to be liable because they should have kept a distance from the car. So that's the default position. And those attorneys and that ski accident lawyer was saying the same thing, that the person in front, who was Gwyneth Paltrow, is assumed to be innocent. And the person in back has to be careful what's coming ahead of them. Now, the fact that I didn't know this means I shouldn't be skiing probably, but it also tells you this guy's got a really uphill battle.
Yeah, no doubt about it. And it's the one lower on the hill versus higher on the hill. And I agree with you. I don't agree with you. I don't think she'll settle because she was on that bunny hill with her children. And I think she has a point to make to her children that nobody's going to push us around under these circumstances. She wants to show them that you fight for justice. So I don't think she's going to settle.
That's
I think this
interesting.
Is going to
We're going to
trial.
take a little wager because I'm still convinced that she's going to settle and say it's not worth all this going to court, but could be very wrong. We need to say goodbye now to Jeff Lax. Thank you so much for joining us this hour. And of course, what do we have coming up next?
Coming up, more live testimony in the obsessed ex-boyfriend murder trial for Zachariah Anderson. They're just on